Welcome to the Top Order podcast. In this episode of the show, we are going to preview an awaited series. We'll find out just how awaited it is from around the world. England versus India. When, where, the build-up for both sides, strengths and weaknesses and key matchups, who is going to be in each 11, and of course, our wildly inaccurate series predictions, all coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned. Swish. We'll stick in the manual swish noise. Baldy still reeling from Australia's defeat in the World Test Championship final. Couldn't be bothered to set up our audio device for this.
Gutted.
Just look at him. His bar is, full of gin and broken dreams.
Mate, it's taken a hammering. There's a lot less in it than there was this time a week ago.
Yes. We're going to talk England-India Test preview. It's come around pretty quickly. The first test of the series. I'm going to give a quick explainer. So we've got 5 test series starting rather untraditionally, actually, in Headingley, at the Fortress Headingley. We then go to Edgbaston, which again is a raucous atmosphere there in the Eric Colley stand before we get to Lord's, Old Trafford, and then the Oval, the final test. And these games are, kind of packed in from 20th of June and the final one towards the end of July. We've got India at the moment playing an intra-squad warm-up game in Beckenham, which is their base for the tour. So 50s, I think, for Shubman Gill and Cal Rahul, I believe in that. Although I don't think the game is being live scored, but you can, certainly find the information on Twitter and various long lens photographers, etc. And England's build-up, I guess when you scroll through any of the newspapers, there's very little, about what England are doing. They've named their squad. There's a few sort of injuries in and amongst that bowling group, which I think are well documented. Jamie Overton being called into the squad, for example, a little while ago. Talk of whether Jofra Archer might be fit and in the mix for that second test match. But other than that, not a whole heap of red ball cricket other than that warm-up game against Zimbabwe a couple of weeks ago for the England boys. They're obviously off at, the Dunhill Links or wherever, having longest drive competitions. The question for you boys really is, obviously I'm pumped about this. It's my first home summer back in England. I'm going to get to go down to Lord's for a couple of days. Really obviously looking forward to that. But is this series gathering any interest across, I guess in Australia and New Zealand?
It certainly is for me. And I think for me, mostly because I really have no idea what to expect from it. And I think that's the most intriguing part of it. I started, not to step on the toes of predictions too much, but I started prepping for this thinking, okay, like, India's had a pretty rough run lately, but they're still an awesome test side. They've got a lot of depth. We've seen Kohli and Sharma disappear, but they're still going to be a side, all the guys that they bring in, they're going to really challenge. And then I started running some numbers and went, India's won 1 test out of their last 8 tests. That's home, and they had a home series against New Zealand, away series against Australia. They've only won 9 out of 67 tests in England. They've, their 2 previous series, they played 4 tests in 2021. The final one of that series was in 2022. That was 2-2. India, the one before that, India lost 4-1. The one before that, they lost 3-1. They just do not have a good record in England. And I look through this batting lineup and go, I kind of don't know who's in the team and don't know where they fit in. So, I think that's the big question. There are so many questions, and I just want to see who kind of steps up for both sides and who takes it.
Yeah, I'll just jump on the back of that. 100%. I think that this is changing of the guard. It's a new era. The big names have gone, the Rohit, Sharma and Virat Kohli, if I can be so forward to say. Those shaped anchors have been tossed over the last, as you mentioned, how many tests that they've really struggled with. I actually don't think that India will be thinking about those at all. I don't think that will even be in the back of their mind. this is a chance for this new batch of cricketers, definitely at the top of the order anyway, to come out and what's the word I'm looking for? Come out and show that they've got to show what they've got, what's needed at Test level. We've always talked about how deep Indian cricket is, and this is a chance for them to show it. A lot of new names. I think that the batting order is fairly settled. If I had to sort of pick an 11, I think this is where I think it's going to land. But depending on what's going to turn up day one, Test one, I don't know what the bowling's going to look like or what the sort of order's going to look like from sort of 6 down. So that's quite exciting. But it's also a new era around Bumrah and his workload management. There's been talks that he's only going to play 3 games in this series, which seems quite restricted given how long the series is. There is a few tests there where there is a little bit of a gap in between, so I find that quite interesting. But yeah, I think this is a time for India to sort of show that they are going to continue into the next era. It hasn't just been a good, 10, 12 years. This is actually a real period of Indian dominance all the way to 2050, right?
2050, yeah. Well, they've certainly got some young folk, haven't they?
They do.
Yeah, but Baldy, I guess we kind of look forward, and we always have got an eye on the next Ashes. We've just recorded our World Test Championship review and talked about what next for Australian cricket and South African cricket. But this series leading in, have you got a keen eye on it as a build-up to the Ashes, as to what you're going to be facing come November in, probably not Brisbane, is it, the first test? But thoughts from Australia, or an Australian perspective?
Yeah, I've always got one eye on the Ashes, and obviously that's the home summer in Australia, so that will be the next time we get to see Australia play in Australia. But I'm jazzed about this series. I'm absolutely jazzed about this because neither of these two sides made the World Test Championship final in the last iteration. England have never made the World Test Championship final in three times of trying, and I think they've really got a point to prove. Both of these sides have really got a point to prove in this next World Test Championship cycle. I think England have got a point to prove insofar as they've got to turn the Bazball entertainment product into one that produces consistent winning cricket that gets them to the top of the league table. And India now, having off the back of winning a lot of tournaments over the last wee while, have an opportunity for these younger players to show that they're equally as brilliant, equally as legendary, and equally as competent of leading their side to important victories as the previous generation. And it'll be exciting to see what this young crop of players will deliver. So I'm super jazzed about this series for what it is, an encounter between two teams that have aspirations to be the best in the world, that are going at each other over 5 tests. And I just cannot wait to see what they produce on the field.
Yeah, I guess, from my perspective, really excited. And Baldy, I think the biggest thing for me, I don't know whether you guys have seen it actually, but Amazon Prime obviously made that, self-serving documentary about the Australian cricket team. At the same time, England were doing one as well. So, I came across it on YouTube. So equal bullshit around moral victories and all that kind of stuff. But what was really, really interesting was some of the talk around what that team were doing. And I think what they were saying is, we want people to remember this team as a team that they wanted to watch play cricket, and we were exciting, and we've heard that before. But I think now you're dead right. This needs to turn into that story of how that team has, beaten India in that, one-off game that had to get replayed, beaten New Zealand in England and chased down some ridiculous scores with young Johnny Bairstow, and we now might see young Jacob Bethell as well. So I don't know whether Bairstow's got trademark rights on YJB. But I also think that they really now need to win this series against India and go and put up a really good showing down under. That defines this team, I think, and that's what I'm kind of excited to see, because I think there is that kind of tipping point there for England. I think over the course of the next couple of months or so.
Binksy, can I jump on the back of that and say, again, when I was sort of doing my research for this, I think of England as this inconsistent side that, that thrills us one day and then, the next day there's a collapse or they'll, even, just thinking about some of the tours that they've been on in India and Pakistan, and they'll show that they can, win a game on their day, and then suddenly it all comes crashing down. But their home form has been really good. Like they've been fantastic. And I think that potentially is the part that maybe, at least in my head, is undersold a little bit. That I think they've won every series, haven't they? Or they've won. They drew. Well, the moral victory of the Ashes aside.
No one can argue that we were the better side over that series. No one.
Let's not go into that. But they've been winning series after series. They beat New Zealand. They beat India. They beat South Africa. It was 2-2 against India in that series. They beat West Indies and Sri Lanka last year. They've been very hard to beat at home, and I think how they've been doing it is that they've been putting up big scores and chasing down big scores. So, yeah, I sort of feel like England's a very strong side at home. Is that how you're feeling?
Yeah, look, I'm certainly feeling like we expect to win at home. I think, to an extent, the way that we're playing our cricket, and you look at the grounds that we're playing on as well, I think they're going to want good wickets. Headingley has turned into a place where you can chase scores down. It used to have a reputation of seaming all over the shop, swinging if you've got the overcast, but it's actually a very, very quick outfield and a decent pitch, a hard pitch. Old Trafford, similarly, probably our quickest, bounciest, truest pitch for batting. The Oval, historically pretty flat, might turn a little bit. We talked a lot about Lords in this game. World Test Championship final and the pitch there. So that might be the one anomaly. So I think we're setting up to play on good pitches and back that brand of cricket. And I hate that phrase, but that's what they think is their best way, is being able to chase down scores and have pace as the option. And that's probably the only concern I have going into this series. If we kind of think about the teams and the matchups, and I'm not going to even hazard a guess at what the India team looks like. I've got no idea what permutations they're going to go for. But England, I think, for this I think they've got a couple of genuine choices, and I think they've got one that's going to get a lot of press, I think, over the course of next week. And that's whether or not Jacob Bethell comes in. He was in possession, let's not forget, of that number 3 spot. Couple of bright innings in New Zealand series where he got 50 in those games and looked really, really good. And his stock is pretty high at the moment. But then you've got Ollie Pope, who put a big 100 up against Zimbabwe, batting at number 3. So that's the kind of media question as to, how can they sort of square that circle. But from a bowling perspective, Ben Stokes fit to bowl, I believe, which is good. But really the quickest bowler we've now got in the squad is Josh Tong, who comes in at around about 140 clicks. And then, we are going to be going in, I think, with Chris Wokes, Tong, Bryden Carse, I think, is going to get the nod, would be my view. Sam Cook is the other seamer in the squad. And then, they'll continue to pick Shoaib Bashir, clearly. So I think that's my worry, is we lack a little bit of depth at the moment unless we can get Jofra Archer fit. And Jamie Overton is the other one who's come into the squad. I don't think they'll go with him because, I think he's really there as a sort of depth chart for Wokes and Carse, as that kind of guy that can actually hold the wood and bat maybe 8 or 9. So that's going to be pretty much the England level for this first game. I'm excited about Josh Tong. I really am. I think Pfeiffer in the Ashes bowled really well in that Zimbabwe game. He's got that little bit of extra pace and bounce. And then, that engine room of Root, Brook, Stokes and Jamie Smith just really, really excites me. Not to mention, we're going to see some fireworks at the top of the order as we have done for the last 3 or 4 years with Ben, never leave the ball, duck it, and Zach, I'll score you a million in one innings and win some series in between the rocks and diamonds at the other end. That's the England view, I think, in terms of 11s. But over to you boys really to kind of figure out who's going to be on the park for India come Thursday.
Raj, you said you thought it was quite easy. Run us through that.
Thanks for that. I think the top six is fairly set in stone. I think you've got Jaiswal and Rahul open. They're going to give Sai Sudharsan a go at number 3, Gill at 4 and captain, and then I think 5 and 6 still have Nair and Pant in some order. Probably Pant at 5, Nair at 6. But then for me it gets a little bit more crazy. So I think Jadeja will fill that sort of spin all-rounder spot. But then you've got sort of a face-off between the likes of Nitish Kumar Reddy, Prasadi Krishna, Ashdeep Singh, Shardul Thakur, someone to fill that sort of one spot there, depending on if they want to go with an extra a batting all-rounder option, whether they want to go with a pacer or that second spinner, which would be their first spinner in Kuldeep Yadav if they wanted to play him. But then I think you've sort of got the Siraj and Bumrah will be there, and then the number 9 will be made up of whoever from that big log jam at number 8. So I think that they do select themselves, the majority of them. It will be what they turn up to on the day and what the conditions are going to be, because like we sort of talked about in the World Test Championship that we just saw, depending on what pitch is there, I felt like everyone had their time was up, their time was numbered. They had to score quickly. Sort of Ben Duckett's approach on that kind of wicket would probably have been really good, going out and going after the ball. So yeah, I think the Indian team is fairly set the first 6 or 7, and then it just comes down to what conditions they'll find on the day. Do you disagree with any of those?
No, I don't really.
I want to pose the question to Stu. I want to frame it in this way. Stu, lots of Shardul Thakur talk. Are you talking Shardul Thakur to bat number 8 for India ahead of Nitish Kumar Reddy?
Is that the end of the question? Okay. I saw you take a big breath and thought, oh, maybe there's more to come. But look, I'm not a huge fan of Shardul Thakur, really. I don't. But I did think, I guess the main. I'm going to sort of flip how I think of that question.
He's going to reframe it, Baldy.
Yes, reframe it by what I'm looking at is when I see their lineup is how much do they trust that batting lineup, because that top 6 and you throw in Jadeja at 7 in terms of talent and potential of that they have there, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Like that, those guys could come out. Anyone who's been listening to this show knows how much I'm a fan of Sai Sudharsan and Jaiswal in particular. Those two, Gill's being handed the captaincy. He sort of feels like he's primed now to just, like, in a way, to just dominate this World Test Championship cycle. Like, he could come out and just be the best batter in the world for the next couple of years, and it wouldn't surprise me. You've seen Rishabh Pant come back in. We hope that he'll get back to his best. Karun Nair's been very, very strong. So if you're confident in that batting lineup, I would actually like them to not pick an all-rounder at all at 8 and just go, we back these guys, this top 7, and then you can pick an awesome bowling lineup. Then you can go, well, now we can take 20 wickets not easily, I was going to say easily, but you give yourself the best chance to take 20 wickets by going, well, we'll pick Bumrah when we can, when he's fit, pick Siraj, pick Krishna, pick another spinner, because I think Kuldeep, he was a difference maker when, in that series in India. And look, obviously it's going to be completely different conditions than some of the wickets they played on there, but he's a good enough bowler and he turns it enough and he's a different enough kind of bowler that he can play a big part, I think, in this series anyway, no matter sort of what the surfaces are. We know that England will probably go after him, which will make it even more interesting. So, yeah, I'd love to see them have that approach, because I don't think Nitish Kumar Reddy, unless you're picking him as a batter, there's much value, because I don't think he can fulfill that fourth seamer role, really. And that's, he's a young guy. Like we saw, he barely bowled in the IPL. He's a batter who can bowl a little bit, I think, personally, at the moment. So, yeah, I would just love them to go, we trust this batting lineup that we've got. Let's go and take 20 wickets. There you go. someone pick up from there.
I like it. I've got a question for you, Binksy and Baldy, around preparation. So this is a bit different how India's gone about preparing for this series, along with the sort of Team India document that came out after the Australian disaster. They've gone away with a new team. They've had it'll end up being three matches worth of preparation once they've finished the intra squad warm up. Does that worry you if you were English, Baldy? And then I want to ask Binksy how he feels about the English preparation and whether it is on the same level. Have they prepared well, and as well as India have, or seem to have?
I don't think it's an issue for England in terms of their preparation at all. I mean, there's been lots of domestic cricket going on in England over the course of the summer so far, and the English team, ostensibly from the outside looking in, don't seem to need a lot of practice matches to come together as a squad and form those relationships and, facilitate all of the coming together that seems to be the big part of them being a good nucleus of a cricket side. I don't necessarily think that having lots of warm-up games makes them a better cricket team. And I think sometimes for Crawley and Duckett, less is more. I think the more that they practice, the more that they play, maybe they get in their own head a little bit. So I think that, the simple game plan of see ball, hit ball really works for them, and maybe a little bit less in terms of preparation in the form of warm-up fixtures. It helps them a little bit. Binksy.
Yeah, from an England perspective, I think that the one difference I think that we've seen over the course of the last probably 6 months or so, that since since McCullum's taken over the white ball team as well, is that there's probably a little bit more crossover between the red and white ball teams. I think they were pretty separate for a period of time, but we've got the likes of Jamie Smith now opening the batting in the white ball stuff. We've got Harry Brook obviously captaining in the white ball stuff. Ben Duckett's in that white ball setup. Bryden Carse is in that white ball setup. Chris Wokes, although he's been sort of injured, has historically been in that white ball setup. So there's only 2 or 3 guys really that haven't played a great volume of cricket, and that's kind of Zach Crawley, who's played a T20 game for Kent, but in terms of sort of first class stuff, his last hit was back in May for that Test match. So they know their roles, I think, is the key. My only concern, and I hate to use this word, but my only concern is the kind of workloads thing with the bowlers, because they haven't got a lot of miles in the legs of Wokes and Tong and Carse. Yes, they've bowled 10 over spells in terms of Bryden Carse, but they've probably not got those sort of Test match miles in the legs. But England don't do it that way anymore. They don't necessarily say to Jofra Archer, you need to go and play 2 or 3 games for Sussex and bowl 10 and then 12 and then 15. They get him in the gym and they get him doing the bowling in and around the squad and building up those workloads in a sort of way where he's probably doing it at 80%. And then 2 or 3 days out before a Test match, they go, right, now we need to crank you up and make sure that you're not going to snap. And then we get you through that, through those sort of workloads that way. So that's my only concern with the preparation. I'm not really concerned that these guys aren't playing first class cricket, because I think by the way that they pick the side, and I won't be careful how I say this, by the way that they pick the side, they don't care about county cricket as the barometer for form and ability. They care about, has someone got the minerals and something about them aesthetically, like a Jacob Bethell, where they look at a guy that was batting number 7 for Warwickshire and go, this kid's a player. I don't care that he's not scored a first-class 100. And let's be honest, I think we've got to give Brendan McCullum a little bit of rope on that, because he's made several of those picks over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. And I don't think he's got one wrong. He's picking guys that he think can come in and do a job. And there's pretty much nobody that he's picked and he thinks can do a job that we all kind of go, Shoaib Bashir. Why? Because we've seen him on Twitter. Jamie Smith doesn't keep wicket for Surrey, but we're gonna pick him with the gloves. If you think about it, the only person that's really come into the side in the course of the last 3 years and looked a bit sort of meh on debut is the guy that was putting up trees in county cricket in Sam Cook, and came in for that Zimbabwe test and probably looked a little bit short of where he would have wanted to be in that, in that game.
Where do we go from here, boys?
I want to ask you a question, Stu. So you opened the show with that sort of spiel about where India are going and where they've come from, and you painted a little bit of a potential of a negative picture there, right? Or the perspective that there could be one. What do you actually expect that to mean? Do you expect that to amount to anything, or is that just a way of giving us an interesting angle to talk about stuff on the show?
Honestly, I don't know. And I guess that's we know. I don't know if we're sort of transitioning into predictions and how the series might kind of go. I have a very, very difficult time. Normally, I've kind of got something penciled in my head, but yeah, I don't know. When you look at when you look at on paper the form and the history of like the form, not just the form of India that we named, but the form of England at home, the history of it always being a really tough place for them to go, the questions we have. I think it's really interesting that, we haven't really dug too deep on strengths and weaknesses, but I think that we've kind of got the strength against the strength in India's bowling against England's batting, and then the weakness against the weakness in terms of, England's bowling lineup potentially against India's batting lineup. And I say weakness in India's batting lineup because we just don't know quite what we're going to get from those guys because we haven't had the consistent performance on, over the past couple of years because Rahul's now opening. Jaiswal's been brilliant, but, Sudharsan, if he comes in, is going to be making his debut. Nair, if he comes in, he's coming back after a long, long break, even though he's got a lot of county and first-class form behind him. So, yeah, again, you kind of do the rounds and you see Indian fans and journalists and stuff predicting 4-1 England and going, gee, are they about to get pasted over here? Is this going to be sort of a repeat of the Border Gavaskar? So, yeah, I don't know. And I suppose, as I said at the top of the show, that's what makes it so interesting for me because I think, if we're just looking at pure talent, this has the potential to be an absolutely brilliant, really close series. But I just don't know what to make of both of these sides. And it's going to be, and it definitely is a transition phase for India. It's whether they're going to transition immediately and be another side that's pushing for a World Test Championship again, or whether they're going to have to go through a year, 12 months, 18 months of actually, it's going to be pretty tough. When we go over to England, we're going to struggle over there. We're going to get all these guys confidence, but we've picked this young, group of batters, and we're going to stick with them. And maybe they do have to have that bit of a cycle because we've seen it with New Zealand. We've seen it. We touched on. We might see it with Australia a little bit over the next 18 months. These sides that have been so settled for a long time, at some point, guys do disappear, and suddenly you have to sort of rebuild in a way to sort of take a phrase from American sports. So, yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question fully there, but yeah, I don't know if we want to move into predictions from there because I'd love to hear how you guys kind of see the series going.
Yeah. My prediction and kind of I thought a little bit about this. I think England are going to play a brand of cricket that we're pretty familiar with now. And I think that what that does is it means it will give India a sniff at some point. And I think that they're too good a side not to take one of those sniffs at some point throughout the course of the series. So the weather forecast, certainly over the course of the next week or so, I've just actually looked it up on my app here. It's going to get to 31 degrees in the UK, which is that's warm for June. It really is. That is proper. Well, that's like going and buying fans and stuff like that warm in England. So I think we're going to see probably the wickets sort of dry up a little bit. So I think we're going to obviously see results over these test matches, the pace at which England play their cricket and the pace at which Test cricket is played now. I don't think we're going to see a draw during the course of this series unless there's some rainy weather involved, which obviously stands a decent chance. But because of that, I do think India will get across the line in at least one game, and I think it could be as close as 3-2. Like I could be convinced it could be 4-1 to England, but I'm going to say 3-2 England, and hopefully that's with a decider at the Oval, because that'd be a great way to end the summer.
Raj?
You're on mute, Raj. I've been waiting to say that on the pod for so long.
Right, so I think that the team that wins the most matches will win the series. Otherwise, it'll be a draw. I'm actually very, very interested to see how this goes. There's a lot of different narratives. I actually think that Sam Constas, if I draw this back to the Border Gavaskar, has done India a few favours in terms of when he came out and bashed around that bowling attack and bashed around Jasprit Bumrah. They actually had no answer to him. They weren't expecting it. They didn't know what to do. I think that they'll have a plan for if this Baz ball tactic eventuates, which it most certainly will. I think they'll have some tactics on how they're going to slow that down, and how they're going to sort of force the game more in their favour. I'm concerned with England having less artillery in their bowling lineup, and whether they can take 20 wickets in the series, or 100 wickets in the series. So I'm going to go, because India's had such a great preparation and they're all focused, I think India's going to win 3-2 or 3-1.
Wow. Baldy?
Yeah, I wrote all the possible permutations down here. I don't normally do it, but I was like, what looks right? Because like you, Stu, I don't really know how good India are going to be. We know that they're going to be good. We know that their bowling attack is good. It doesn't matter which combination of those 9 or 10 guys that they choose, whether it's Arshdeep or Akashdeep, whether it's Kuldeep, whether it's basically anyone other than Shardul Thakur. I think they're going to get something out of them as a bowler. So like their attack is really deep, but I wrote down India 5-0. I can't see that happening. India 4-1. I can't see that happening. I don't see England winning 5-0. I think actually genuinely England will win this 3-2, because I think there are 2 wins in that Indian Test team. But I think at home, England, if the batting conditions are good, are going to make a lot of runs and are going to make life hard for the Indians. So I actually have England penciled in just 3-2.
Yeah, it's I actually have 2-2 on my piece of paper. In the sense that maybe one gets impacted by rain. I don't think we're going to see a traditional draw, and the 2-2 is probably because I don't know, as I said, who I favour. I think if I have to pick a winner, I would probably lean. I would lean towards England because of the home, because of all the stuff I've seen, because of I feel like they have more questions. I don't, as I think we talked about last week, I don't love this England bowling attack. I know that Atkinson will hopefully be fit for parts of the series. Maybe Potts will come in at some point and play. I actually sort of feel like Potts. Yeah, I quite like Potts. I don't know why he's so far down the pecking order compared to some of these other guys. I've been impressed with Cass. I think they'll probably have enough, but I do think that's an area that if India's batters can turn up, then that is an area they can then put a lot of pressure on. But it almost feels like if India are already saying Bumrah's only going to play 3 games, and lots of the chatter feels like not defeatist, but it's sort of the mood feels like almost, at least from the fans and from the journalists, that a sort of tight loss would be acceptable as we move into this new era of Indian cricket. So that doesn't inspire me with confidence, thinking this is going to be the team that goes down and wins the Border Gavaskar where half their players are out. That kind of a vibe of an Indian side. It sort of feels like an acceptance of we do have a bit of work to do here to sort of move on. And so, yeah, as I said, 2-2 for me. But I think if you're purely saying someone's going to win, then I would lean towards England.
There you go. Predictions done. Well, boys, we'll of course be able to eat some humble pie on those predictions at some point during the course of this English summer. First test, as we say, kicking off at Headingley on June the 20th. If you are going to the game, make sure you get yourself out to St Michael's Fisheries for fish and chips just outside the ground. Absolutely superb. Headingley, a fantastic atmosphere as well. And with the sun, I tell you what, there'll be some handkerchiefs on heads. The ice cream man will be doing a fine trade in Leeds this coming week. And we will, of course, be in your feed over the course of this England-India series and bring you plenty more news, views and interviews from around the cricketing world over the course of the next few weeks. But that is all for us on the Top Order podcast for this evening. We'll see you soon. Good night.